Hello, Fredak here. Hello, it's January the 14th. It's a Tuesday. Alrighty, I'm not in December, I'm in January. January the 14th, Tuesday the 14th of 2025. This could just be one of the most epic postings ever on YouTube. How to save the United States financially. First up, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. For those of you new to the spot, I hope you'll subscribe. That way you get to see some of the past postings that I've had on here and the future ones that I'm going to have on here. The general idea is to make some monies. Okay. As for me, why am I posting these things? Well, while I'm vertical and not horizontal, this may end up being my legacy. With all that being said, one of my favorite lines, and I put on one of my best white t-shirts for this. Just call me Anderson, Mr. Anderson, for those of you who remember Beavis and Butthead. Okay, so for today, it's so epic that I've got some notes. I'm going to need the notes to go through all of this. Today's discussion is how to save the United States financially. If you asked me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months ago, 2 months ago, I really didn't think it was that big of a difference between President Trump and Vice President Harris, because the country has just printed money tremendously. Why? Because we enjoy that special perk that we are the reserve currency of the world, so we have an unlimited checkbook. Just keep putting zeros after that one. It's a beautiful thing until it comes time to pay the pauper, the piper. So we've printed money tremendously. We've printed money to the tune of a debt of like $37 trillion. $1 trillion is 13 digits. You could have a 1 in the first spot, 12 more zeros. That's 13 trillion. Somewhat mind-boggling. Okay, so 2, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, I would have thought, how do you service this kind of a debt? Let's try to put this all into perspective. And I try to bring people that subscribe to Fredak a spin that you're not going to get elsewhere. And you're not going to get this spin elsewhere. This is one of the epics. And if it comes to fruition, someday, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 years from now, people might actually point back and say, that guy had it. He came up with it. There's probably a lot of ways to straighten out the debt. I don't know what they are. The only one I could think of would be now President-elect Trump. If you remember, those of you who have a little bit of age behind you, it was called the Etch-a-Sketch. It was like a red board with 2 little white knobs on it, and you drew things on it, up and down, horizontal, vertical lines. You could make a picture or do this, that, or whatever. Well, I thought the only way to clear this tremendous amount of debt would be to write out $37 trillion, go on national TV and explain to the world, look, unfortunately, we can't keep servicing this debt. It's not sustainable. We just don't have the money for it. So what I'm proposing is, it's all wiped out, all gone, hit the reset button, we're not paying nobody nothing. Of course, that would destroy the credit rating of the U.S. It would have its short-term, mid-term, long-term difficulties financially, but it may end up being the only outcome. There goes that saying about you painted yourself into a corner. Well, how does that actually work? You go into a room and you got some kind of a varnish, and it's a 10 by 20 room. You start over on that corner and you start swishing the stuff around with your mop, broom, whatever. And you're moving the stuff and you're swishing and swishing. The next thing you know, you're all the way over into the corner and you're like, wow, how do I get out of here? Since you did this away from the doorway, you can't even step out. Painted yourself into a corner. So the country is painting itself into a very difficult financial corner. Nobody disputes this. Okay. As for me personally, I have a certain amount of respect for capitalism, for the United States, for everything that it stands for. Tremendous model, the forefathers that put together the Constitution. Did they ever foresee cell phones and cryptocurrencies? No, but yet most of the stuff that's in there pretty much stays very current. And my favorite line, with that being said, I'm also a believer that the greatest Americans were the Americans that weren't even Americans. They picked up their musket, them and maybe their 15, 16-year-old son, and went and joined this ragtag team to try to stop the oppression of the motherland country, which was England, trying to absorb a lot of tax money out of the 13 colonies, the New World. They were the ones that risked everything. They risked everything. If they didn't come home, wife and family, the farm would probably go into disarray. They'd probably end up on the streets. And yet they still did all that. So, and now we have all the brave men and women that have served our country over the last 250 years, protecting our freedoms, protecting our rights. You got to tip your hat off to those. They risk everything. They give everything. Limbs, lives. Says a lot. Let's get back to saving the United States. So, after looking at the situation quite a bit, I said, it's not a good situation. This is bad. This is really bad. Why is it really bad? Okay. The budget that we have in the United States to keep everything running is about $7 trillion. Okay, $7 trillion. $2 trillion of that, a little bit less than that, but close to $2 trillion is servicing the debt. Now, if our budget was, let's say, $46 trillion and it was $2 trillion to service the debt, you'd say, the ratio is not all that bad, not that bad. But at $5 trillion with $2 trillion to service the debt, that's a big percentage. It's going to start to drag down on the country. And those who understand numbers, and President Trump understands numbers, they must know that we are going in a bad direction. The whole globe is in a bad direction. So where does that leave us all? Let's take a look at the notes. What I've come up with, this is the Fred Act thinking, is that if we monetize the financial situation, monetize it refers to the process of turning a non-revenue generating item into cash. A non-generating item into cash. In many cases, monetization looks to novel methods of creating some type of income from new sources. Okay, such as embedding ad revenues inside of social media. Where does that happen? Maybe on YouTube? Oh, yeah. It's a way to monetize something. So how can the U.S. get out of a $37 trillion deficit? Here's how they could do it. If any of you have any connection to Elon Musk, President Trump, have them reach out to Fred Act. They could stop in, take a look at this, leave a message, and I'll get back to them. Who else comes up with these ideas? Nobody. The talking heads out there? Nobody. Okay, so here's the way it all looks to me. Let's go with XYZ cryptocurrency, whatever that may be. Well, you know what? I'm going to use XRP as the example. Doesn't have to be XRP. It could be any other cryptocurrency. There are reasons why I think it will be XRP, and I'll allude to those a little bit later on in this posting. But, so, we're going with XRP. So there's about a smidgen under 100 billion of them out there. 57 plus billion have been released. If the United States government can get control of 1 billion of these XRPs and manage to inflate the price to $1,000 for every XRP, $1,000 for every XRP, 1 billion times 1,000 equals 1 trillion. So the government would need about 37 billion of these XRPs and monetize them through some type of incentive program to bring them up to $1,000 price. Is that so unheard of? Ethereum's at 3,500. Bitcoin's at 100,000. Let's look at the big logical picture. It's not going to be Bitcoin because it's already at 100,000 and there's only 20 million of them. So it starts to limit how many of these crypto things are out there. Now, could the U.S. turn around and step right in and start their own crypto thing? Absolutely, they could. But it's going to be time consuming. It's going to be costly. Who is in place that's already put all the railroad tracks and everything in place to start moving this system? Ripple. XRP, it's Ripple. Okay, so this is a path for how the U.S. can solve their financial crisis that is upon us. This is how you do it. You pick up about 40 billion of these XRPs, and then you inflate the price up to $1,000 each, even if you back them by the U.S. government. Start out at $500, $600, $700 for every XRP holder out there. Boom, the U.S. government is behind it. It's going to go to $500, $600, $700 each. That instantly starts to monetize these currencies to alleviate the tremendous debt that we have. Hello, Elon Musk. Hello. And I've got a lot of other ideas inside this noggin. Okay. So if it doesn't all add up to you, go back to the beginning, watch this posting. This is the posting that could save the United States financially. I strongly believe this. I want to thank you all for being here today. May all your days be winning ones. Post any comments that you might have on this subject. I personally believe that 8, 10, 12, 15 years from now, if the country goes in this direction, people will look back on this and they'll say, how did that guy know? He didn't know. He just kind of thought about it and figured it out in my head. This is the perfect opportunity to avoid the Etch-a-Sketch board. Sorry, all gone. We don't owe nobody nothing. We ain't paying nobody nothing. Okay. Want to thank you all for stopping by. Hope you'll subscribe. Fredak tries to bring things that you don't get from the normal talking heads out there. With all that being said, from Fredak, Mr. Anderson, may all your days be winning ones. Subscribe. Leave any messages you might have below. Want to thank you all for being here. Let's save the United States financially.